I, 32F, am currently sitting in my half-packed living room, staring at a stack of legal papers that basically represent the last decade of my life. My husband, 35M, is currently staying at some budget motel because I had the locks changed the second the emergency occupation order was signed. He still thinks this is just a temp tantrum. He's convinced I'm going to fold because, in his own words, I am nothing without him. He's about to find out that nothing was actually the only thing holding his entire world together. We met when I was 22. He was already a rising star at a high-end architectural firm. He was charismatic and had this air of authority I mistook for stability. I had a degree in structural engineering, but he managed to convince me that it was more efficient for our future if I took a back seat and managed his administrative needs. For 8 years, I wasn't just his wife. I was his silent partner. I did the load-bearing calculations for his private contracts. I drafted the blueprints he signed his name to. I managed the tax filings for his firm. I was the engine, and he was the shiny hood ornament. The shift happened a few months ago. He landed a massive municipal contract, the kind of project that defines a career. We were celebrating at a fancy steakhouse when I mentioned a discrepancy in the zoning structural requirements he'd overlooked in his preliminary draft. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was trying to save his skin. He didn't thank me. He set his wineglass down with a look that made my blood run cold. He told me I needed to learn my place. He said, "You're a housewife who plays with CAD software. Without my license, my firm, and my money, you are absolutely nothing. You'd be a receptionist at the DMV if I hadn't plucked you out of obscurity. Don't ever question my professional integrity again." I sat there in total silence. I didn't cry. I just watched him eat his steak, realizing he didn't see a partner. He saw an appliance he thought he owned. The next morning, his entitlement went into overdrive. He told me he was moving all our joint liquid assets into a protected trust managed by his brother, who is a total bottom-tier personal injury lawyer. He told me I'd be receiving a stipend from now on. He said it was for my own good to help me find perspective. I realized then he wasn't just being a jerk. He was preparing for something. I started digging. I didn't use the home computer. I went to the library. I found out he hadn't just been moving money. He'd been funneling consulting fees to a woman he'd been seeing for over a year, a junior associate at his firm. He was trying to bankrupt me before filing for divorce, so I wouldn't have the resources to fight for what was mine. But he made a huge mistake. He forgot that I was the one who set up his encrypted cloud servers. He forgot that I handled the digital certificates for his firm's designs. And he definitely forgot that in our state, hiding assets during a marriage is a massive legal no-no. I spent the next few weeks being the perfect, submissive nothing. I cooked, I cleaned, and I listened to him brag. Meanwhile, I was documenting every wire transfer to the mistress and every single structural calculation I had performed for his firm without pay. The breaking point was last Tuesday. He threw a folder on the table. A post-nuptial agreement. He commanded me to sign it, saying it waived my interest in the firm in exchange for the house. He told me if I didn't, he'd make the divorce last 10 years and leave me with zero. "Take the house and go find a hobby," he said. I didn't sign it. Instead, I waited for him to go to sleep. I went into the office and began dismantling the pedestal he'd built for himself. I wasn't just leaving. I was going to show him exactly what happens when the nothing that supports your entire structure is removed. The next morning, I didn't wake him up. I didn't prep his bag. I left a note saying I was going to my mom's. In reality, I went straight to a top forensic accountant. I had a hard drive with every ledger from his firm. Since I was the registered secretary and treasurer, a title he gave me for tax breaks, forgetting it gave me full legal access, I had every right to the books. The accountant told me my husband had been playing a dangerous game with the IRS, writing off personal gifts to his mistress as business expenses and undervaluing the firm by about $4 million. Then I went to the city building department. That municipal contract he was so proud of? It was based on a design I had finalized, but I had intentionally left a specific error in the saved draft on his local drive, a load-bearing miscalculation that wouldn't cause a collapse but would 100% fail a city safety audit. He had been too arrogant to double-check my work and had submitted my draft as his final, signed and sealed with his professional stamp. 2 days later, he called me screaming. He couldn't find the login credentials for the secure server for his city board meeting. I told him he should ask his associate, since I was nothing and he didn't need my help. When he threatened to cut off my phone and insurance, I told him I'd already removed his access to the business accounts. As treasurer, I noticed irregularities and froze the funds for an audit. The silence on the other end was amazing. He told me his brother was going to tear me apart and that the trust was airtight. I just hung up. My lawyer, a total shark, just laughed when she heard about the brother. Using a family member who isn't a trust specialist to hide assets is basically a gift to the opposing counsel. We filed for a temporary restraining order on all assets and a motion for mandatory disclosure. The brother tried to bully my lawyer, offering $50,000 to walk away. My lawyer pointed out that I was the primary engineer on 60% of the firm's projects and that we had the metadata to prove it. She also flagged the trust as a fraudulent conveyance. She told him if he didn't want to be disbarred, he should tell his brother to start behaving. He didn't. My husband showed up at the house and kicked the door in. He was roaring about how I was a parasite. I just held up my phone. I was recording, and the police were already on the way. I also mentioned that the city had found the error in his plans and his license was under review. He went pale. He realized I hadn't done anything. I had just stopped being the person who fixed his messes. Watching him get let out in handcuffs for the domestic disturbance was the best feeling in the world. In court, the judge was not playing around. Under state law, marital property is viewed broadly. Since he tried to hide assets, the judge moved for dissipation of marital assets. His brother actually tried to claim in court that I was mentally unstable and had sabotaged the firm. My lawyer shut that down instantly with the cloud backups showing I had flagged the error weeks ago, and he had deleted the warning. The judge looked at the brother and told him she'd be referring his conduct to the disciplinary commission if he kept it up. The judge granted me temporary maintenance, 3 times what his stipend was, and ordered him to pay all my legal fees. But the real kicker was the professional fallout. The city didn't just pull the contract, they sued his firm. He called me from a motel, sounding like a ghost, asking me to come in for 1 day to fix the files so the firm wouldn't go under. I told him I was busy. I told him I'd been contacted by the city's lead contractor as an independent consultant. I was starting my own LLC. The final divorce decree gave me 70% of our assets and the house because of his fraud. His brother is likely losing his license. My husband had to sell his office to cover the lawsuits and what he owed me. He's now a freelance drafter doing the low-level work he used to think was beneath him. A month ago, I was at the groundbreaking for the new city center. I was there as the lead structural consultant. My husband showed up at the edge of the site, looking haggard. He told me I took everything, his firm, his money, his name. I just looked him in the eye and said, I didn't take anything. You said I was nothing without you. I just proved you were only something because of me. A facade can't stand without a frame, but the frame doesn't need the paint to be strong. I'm not a nothing anymore. I'm the architect of my own life. It turns out when you stop carrying a narcissist on your back, you can actually build something that lasts. If you liked seeing this nothing build a kingdom out of the ashes of a toxic marriage, make sure to subscribe. After all, a strong foundation is the only thing that lasts.